feedback? How do you then set a plan for yourself to continue to improve? And how do you just always approach something as this learning curve that we're always on? So I think those are some of the key components in terms of what we're looking for. I know there'll probably be questions around this, but it really is a case-by-case basis. We have sort of a number of teams set in place for the application review process, which I'll get more into on the timeline. But know that if you think you have a really strong reason to apply, we encourage you to apply. We're looking forward to reading your applications, and know that if we think maybe another year of experience would make you a better candidate, we'll let you know, or if there are other opportunities that we think you'd be a better fit for, we'll let you know as well. Education, as I said, I'll just briefly touch on this, but vSchool will be the partner for Utah, and really offering that web development training needed to be able to enter into an internship at Adobe. Again, as I said, we know you're always learning, so we really view the internship experience as an extension of that education, but this really being those basic skills that then teams at Adobe can say, we can offer you the additional education. Or if you go on to other roles as well at other companies, you'll see that this is just sort of that foundation that you need to make that transition. And then practice. So as I mentioned, each phase is dependent on the previous one. So if you're successful in the education component, and what success looks like is we're getting ongoing feedback from the vSchool team. So we set it up around every 3 weeks. We have a pretty standard format that the vSchool team sends over to us, and we're able to see, is this individual tracking towards being able to be placed in an internship? And if you are, then you're placed on one of our technical teams across our business units. Because the Lehigh office is primarily digital marketing, most of the teams will be somewhat related to our digital marketing business. But then you'll be placed with a number of mentors. Support is incredibly important to us for this transition. So we have a business mentor, which is someone through one of our employee networks, which is really just to help you feel a part of the Adobe community and understand what does it mean to work at Adobe and see my career here. We offer a technical mentor, which is someone who sits beside you, not your hiring manager, and can pair a program with you, or can talk you through any challenges that might come up. And then the third mentor is someone who's gone through the Digital Academy program. Because we're piloting in Utah now, your Digital Academy mentor will be someone from the Bay Area, but technology allows us to make that possible. So you will still have that mentor supporting you throughout your time at the Digital Academy. Then based on the feedback you'll be getting sort of ongoing from your hiring manager, so you'll know pretty soon how you're tracking towards a potential for a full-time opportunity. We have had candidates go on to entry-level software engineering roles, and more we're having candidates even get promoted, and we're hoping to see individuals really make their careers at Adobe. Obviously, we're also really happy if you decide Adobe's not for you, but you want to go work elsewhere. That to us is still success, but we are very supportive if you want to make your career happen at Adobe. Getting into the nuts and bolts, the actual timeline. So as I mentioned, this is our pilot here. We're learning as we go. If there are things that we sort of don't seem as smooth as they might be able to be in the future, please let us know. We're always open to feedback. Also know the timeline is a little quick for this cohort, but we will have another cohort which will be starting in February. Is that correct? So for now, the due date is October 27th for your applications to get into vSchool. You can apply through the vSchool webpage, and then what happens is the vSchool team will review that first round of applications, and you'll have sort of the standard vSchool application, and then there'll be some Adobe-specific questions on top of that for the Adobe Scholarship. And then the candidates that are successful through that first round, they will be sent to the Adobe team, and we sort of have a two-step review process. So there'll be some phone screens and application reviews, and then it'll go to a team in Lehigh who will also review the applications that they see. Candidates will be notified by November 17th, and then the course start date is November 27th, which I think is a perfect point to sort of pass it over to Zaro to talk a little more about B-School, because that would be the first step of the process.
Perfect. So first, I just want to recognize Liz and give her a quick introduction, but also just wanted to kind of a big shout out to Adobe. It's hard to get into tech. It's hard to change careers, especially as an adult. There's a fairly written path or a standard path. So when you've gone down a career and you have some experience and you're changing later, that's already a tricky thing. For a company like Adobe to come in and not only say like, yeah, we're open to creative grads who are learning skills and want to join our team, to not only be open to that, but to also come and say, we'll pay for their scholarships, we'll give them a stipend so that they can make it possible for you to quit your job and do something like this. We'll mentor you and bring you onto the team and invest as much as they have. That's an enormous thing for tech companies to do. For them to value diversity in your background and your experience and how you got into a career. So that's a really big thing. So I just want to shout out to Liz and the Adobe team for that.
And I'll just make a quick note. This final slide that's up just shows the candidates we've had go through the program so far that are now full-time employees at Adobe. So you can see it notes sort of where they're coming from. So teacher, film producer, IT support manager, and then the current team that they're on. So as I said, it's all ultimately about all of you. So I think important to end with those candidates. So over to you, thanks.
Thank you. So this is actually perfect transition. So real quick, what backgrounds are we coming from? Like either university studies, past careers, hobbies, or things of interest? Just call them out real quick. Talk at you for a minute. So.
Stay-at-home dad.
Perfect.
Bachelor degree, computer information system.
All right, so I'm talking to. What's your?
Legal.
Legal? Sorry, then. Perfect. So legal. What's your? Okay. Okay. Computer repair. What's your?
I have a certificate of family life education and have been a stay-at-home mom for 7 years.
Awesome. Awesome. You 3 more.
High school basically.
Okay. Very cool.
Keep it safe.
Awesome.
Product development,
We're skipping. What was the last piece of product development? Awesome. Very cool. So I'm a Latin American studies major, and I was going to be a dentist. So mine was a dentist since I was like 12. That was kind of the path, right? It was go fix teeth, really stable. It's going to be great, right? So I went to college and realized that wasn't my jam. I happen to be good at science, but I actually like nice teeth, not teeth that need to get fixed to be turned into nice, and didn't want to spend all day doing that. So I decided to start a business, and my family thought it was silly and less than silly, we'll say, some of the time. They weren't not always super excited about that. But I knew that was what I wanted to do. It wasn't for me, didn't feel like a good fit. So I bring that up and give you my background because since that time, when I was in university to go to dental school and had like the path as easily kind of drawn out as you could get, started a business that didn't work, and then I started a business that did work, and that led to starting B-School. The business that did work is a software development shop where we built big pieces of software for big companies. It was a lot of fun. We were able to add a lot of value to different businesses, help them grow, help them better serve their customers, better serve their employees. At the end of the day, we kept running into a certain problem. We had companies come to us and say, hey, build me this big piece of software. So we would do that. And at the end, they said, that was cool. Now, I don't have anyone to keep maintaining this, building out extra features. Where do I go from here? So we went from a software development shop and started to train people on behalf of our clients that they would then hire. So basically, employers would come to us and say, hey, train me as a software developer because I don't know where to look or what to do. I don't know how to do that. So we had those skills already. Our onboarding process happened to be a very long one because when we would hire folks, we found whether they're self-taught or they came from university, wherever their background, they still needed a lot of training and onboarding and mentoring to be really productive in industry. So did that for a few classes, for a few clients, turned into classes, and then it got its own name and became its own company, and ended up being a lot more fun than running a small agency. The reason I bring that up is because I was in a position where we as a company were always trying to find the best people to hire. And we were trying to compete against the Adobes to hire all the best folks. They had bigger budgets than our little agency did, though. And big companies across the world have lots of resources, lots of ways of trying to hire the best people. So we had to get really creative and find, how do we recognize aptitude? How do we recognize people with a certain drive or the ability to learn or to solve problems? And at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for here. That's what Adobe is looking for in their employees as well. It's not just about, I took a class or I got a degree that says I should know this stuff. It's about, I can actually solve these problems. I can add value. I can fix things. I can make things better or more creative. Right? That's not as easy to show. Right? It's easy to show on a paper the list of classes you attended. It's not as easy to say, I can solve this problem for you. I can make your company better. I can fix this or do it faster. Right? That's why bootcamp industry exists. And that's one of the things that we're here to help you do. So a little bit of background on the program. I've been in business a little over 40 years now. We came from industry where we knew what we were looking for, and we're doing this for our own agency. Turned into a school because we got really good at this. And we've always maintained a really tight relationship with the tech industry. As an entrepreneur, I feel like I can't stress enough how similar an entrepreneur's role in starting a business is to your role in starting a career in tech, right? When you're talking about, how do I get into this new and exciting career, right? You see the Zuckerbergs of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world, and these cool startups that happen, where you see people, or you have friends or family who have started a career in tech. You see offices with slides and catered lunches and billion square foot offices at the foot of the mountain with Adobe. And I'm jealous of the basketball court. You see all these different things, and you think, man, wouldn't that be awesome to start my career? I could do something meaningful. I could make more money for my family. I could have more stability. And there's a number of different reasons you might be wanting it. But sometimes it's kind of a confusing path on how to get there, right? How many of you have taken some class of some kind on coding before? Whether it was Udemy, Audacity, ProSite. Okay, so more than half. Okay. How many took a more formal program, like maybe in high school or college or some other vocation thing? Okay, so a number of you as well. Okay, so you've been learning, you've been feeling your way through this, right? So as an entrepreneur, you don't always know what the next path is. You're testing different things and trying different things out, and the ones that break through and go further, you just double down on those and go faster, right? It's the same thing you're doing here. So you've taken classes before, you've learned on your own, some of you have done it in more formal ways. Our job here, our role at B-School, is to help connect you from your backgrounds in teaching or nonprofits or stay-at-home parents or sales or marketing or repair, whatever your background currently is take you from there and help you chart that path towards what industry wants, right? What they're actually looking for, and how we can make you productive enough that they want to pay you to do it for them. Okay? So transition real quick here. Because we'll have lots of questions and answers, and I feel like that's probably where we'll get into a lot more of the nitty-gritty. I want to give you just a touch more background on B-School and why we do this and why this partnership with Adobe made so much sense for us. We have a strong belief that technology is changing the world for everybody, and it should. Right? It shouldn't just be something that a small group of people get to experience. Right? My dad installed gas fireplaces. Right? He started a business, and we were poor my entire life because he was starting his own business, and it took him 20 years to make it work. Right? And it was fantastic. It was a great experience. I learned tons from it. But I had no tech folks around me. I had nobody that's tech. So moving into the tech industry was a little trial and error. like figuring out where to go and what to do. So you make friends, you learn from different culture, read as much as you can, and figure it out. Right? Technology and learning to code has the ability to change your life. It can allow you greater earning potential. It can allow you a more enjoyable career, something you're more passionate about, have more stability. If you're into entrepreneurship or you feel like you might want to build something on your own, it gives you that ability as well. And one of the things that we found really valuable at B-School is it gives you the opportunity to potentially work remote. We currently have 3 campuses. So this one in Salt Lake, we have one in Ghana, and we have one in Lebanon. Those 2 other campuses happened because we were able to make partnerships with folks around the world to bring the technology education to that many more people. So in Lebanon, we've done 4 classes now, I believe. So we've graduated well over 100, close to 150 people. Many of whom were Syrian refugees. This morning I was on a call with my friend Haitham, who was one of our partners in the area, talking to him about some of the outcomes results of the folks who took the class over there. I mention that because B-School has been able to help people around the world in different countries, different continents, from all kinds of different backgrounds, find success in a career in technology. And that is, on a personal note, why this is way more fun than running a small agency. Okay? It's great to make money helping ADP payroll make a better sales tool for their 15 bajillion salespeople to sell payroll software. Right? That's fine. We did that. Right? It's fine to do that, and it was good for my family and I enjoyed it. But it's way, way more meaningful and impactful for us personally to be able to see people change their lives and change their careers and provide for families. Okay, that's what I tell my family about. That's why I'm like, Mom, guess what we did? Like, you won't believe this whole story. Some of the stories that Liz tells you about folks that have been able to join the Adobe team, that's what we thrive on, right? That's what we do. That's our job. So I am looking forward to getting to know all of you. And hopefully, we're able to help you guys start your careers. And hopefully that ends up being at Adobe, and if not, that you start in other wonderful places and do other wonderful things. So, with that, open it up for questions, I believe, and we can answer anything you guys have. And please feel free, grab drinks, grab cookies. Everyone looks thirsty and hungry, so we should.
Kind of the details of how long B-School is.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. So the V-School program specifically is 12 weeks long. That's the in-class portion of it. Before that, there's a pre-course where you have to prepare. So Liz mentioned briefly the application process. Part of that for us is an aptitude test. So I'll just kind of talk you through it right now. How many of you have already filled out an application or talked to Tony? Okay, a few of you have. Okay. So he may have already talked to you about this. For everybody else, that's something that we feel like is part of our secret sauce. It's easy to filter applicants to B-School by job experience, or oh, you have a CS degree, or you've done something in the computer space. Those are all really helpful things, and they inform us on how quickly you pick something up, or the experiences you have. This aptitude test is really important to us, and I don't build it up to make it scary, because it shouldn't be. I build it up because it tests on the ability to organize information really well. So you don't have to have any coding experience to succeed at it. Right? It helps to assess your ability to find small details, or to organize information, to recognize patterns, to think in a visual way, and to orient information in your head. Okay? We do that because it means that we can find aptitude, we can find people who can learn to code quickly, even if you don't have a background in computers. Right? Several of you mentioned, I have computer repair, I have these classes, I've done these things. We want to see that you're trying to learn. We want to see that you've gone through different paths, that you're showing a drive on your own, because this isn't something that can get spoon-fed to you. Right? We're trying to streamline it as much as possible, but we want to see that drive as well. The aptitude test is important. It takes about an hour. We'll send that to you. Take it online. Get tons of scratch paper, pencils, like work it out. It's not meant for you to do in your head. It's meant for you to explore it, write it out, and do that. Based on those results, we'll go ahead and interview with you. We'll also send you a series of essay questions, or short essays. We want to get an understanding of your experience in your career, why you learned to code, how you've tried to learn in the past, and why you're interested in doing this now. And then based on that, we'll make an initial round of recommendations similar to Adobe program. For those that are accepted into the program, there's a series of pre-course work that takes anywhere from 20 to 60 hours. It can be even faster, it can take even longer. That's just kind of the range. It's a project that you have to do. So you build a simple web application. Very, very simple. If you have some experience, there'll be parts of it you can accelerate through. If you don't, there's tons and tons of resources, and you're good to hang out with Ben, who will be one-on-one mentoring you through that and answering all of your questions. So even before the program starts, you'll get one-on-one time with instructors. One class actually does start on November 27th. Bob will be one of the lead instructors, so you'll see him all the time. There's a number of instructors you'll see here that will participate in teaching the class, but just so you can kind of point out some of the useful folks to you. The class itself is very intense. It's 12 weeks long. Expect at a bare minimum 40 hours a week. So tell you that don't work in addition to it, don't have a job still. That's part of why Adobe has made the stipend available to help offset some of those living costs. The other thing that Bisco has done is we provide free housing for those that need it. Just a few blocks away, we have student housing so that we can streamline as many things as possible for you. I assume most of you live here that are here in person, anyone online. That's the other reason that we have free housing, is to make it easier so that you can focus on learning to code and start a new career, and not, oh shoot, where am I supposed to live? How do I figure that out? I hate my roommate. You hate your roommate, you can see him in class too, so you'll have to resolve that. So we'll deal with those things. Usually people are very friendly. You look like a nice one. As far as the actual stack, we teach a JavaScript stack. So full stack JavaScript on the front and the back end. So if you don't know what that means, JavaScript is the most universal coding language that exists today. The reason we teach that is because we're trying to take you from not in a coding job to entry-level coding software developers. JavaScript is one of the most applicable languages you can learn. It's also nice because you learn one language and can apply it on the front end, which is what you see when you go to a website. That's the style, the design, the interaction with it, and the back end, which is, let's say you fill out a form, you log into Facebook, right? The back end is what takes that data, goes and puts it in the database, runs certain checks, maybe pulls information from other places, makes sure that everything is secure, that you have access to what you're supposed to, and you don't to what you shouldn't. You can use JavaScript for both sides of that. So when you're learning a new skill, learning one language allows you to minimize the number of new things you have to learn and maximizes the ways that you can apply it. Okay? So it gives you the most applicable skill as quickly as possible. Also, because it's JavaScript and every company has some need of it, you have the broadest pool of companies that need your skills. If we taught something, on the other hand, very obscure or very specific, there would only be a small group of companies that might need that, and so it would be less valuable for you as a skill. So JavaScript, we teach something very, very broad. On that note, though, many students go off and work in other languages, and that's one of the things you'll find that's very different about a bootcamp like V-School and a university degree. Okay? At V-School, you're going to learn how to learn. That's one of the primary things that you'll have to come away with. Right? So when you learn JavaScript, that's your first language, but you may get hired into another. Right? We had a graduate cohort ago got hired in C#. They had this dream job, and they're so stoked they want it. We're like, well, okay, but like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Like, let's talk through this process. And we're working with them to do it. Like, okay, yeah, I'll do that, but I really want to work here. So about a week or two before graduation, they would come in the evenings and work on C#. And then go and ask our mentors what they knew about that. All the instructors like, hey, what experience do you have here? Because this job says I'm supposed to know this and I want to learn it. And I don't want to tell you, like, go crash course in the evening for 2 weeks and you can get any job you want. That's not what I'm trying to say. But he was really, really committed and really wanted his job, and was able to impress the interviewer that in such a short period of time, he was able to pick up a new language and solve their interview questions in a way they hadn't thought of before. He had an interesting take on it, right? Many of our guys will go on and work in JavaScript. Many will not. They'll go and work in Android or iOS or Python or all of this. So if you've learned certain languages before, if you've practiced or taken classes on them in the past, that will benefit you as you learn JavaScript. And once you come through this program and you learn JavaScript, you'll be able to continue on and learn other languages that interest you or that would be valuable in your career as well. So one last thing I want to mention on the actual specifics of the course. Two things actually, sorry. If you let me, I would talk for like 10 hours, so I'll try to minimize this. I mentioned the Aptitude Test. One of the things I feel like is important to remember, I personally believe that almost anyone can learn to code, given enough time. That doesn't mean that everyone can learn to code in 12 weeks and be productive enough to be hired as a software engineer. Okay? That's why we test for those things. That's why we interview. That's why we ask for those different questions. And have you work with a mentor one-on-one, and you do an evaluation that you have to pass off before you're allowed into class. That's why there's all those steps, because whether Adobe's paying for it or you're paying for it, this is a big investment of your time and your money, and your attention and your commitment. It's a big sacrifice for you and for your families, right? Your families or your friends who are used to hanging out with you or being supported by you or being watched with your kids. It's a big sacrifice, and we want to make sure that you can be successful in this, because you're putting your trust in us to help you get where you want to go, and we expect a lot out of you to get there, right? So Aptitude Test and all these varying parts of the admissions process help us filter for those who we feel are most likely to be able to succeed in this really accelerated program. If you don't get in, that doesn't mean that you can't learn to code. It just might mean that, in our opinion, it'll take you longer, or there's some other things we want to see you practice on so that you can take full advantage of the course down the road. Okay? Liz already mentioned there's another Adobe sponsored class, or Adobe series of scholarships for end of February. So if this cohort doesn't work out, you can definitely apply again and do the options. The last thing I'll mention, in any group of where you're learning, in any kind of classroom, there will be those that will pick up certain things really fast and others that will struggle with certain topics. Okay? We know that, and we fully expect that. So we'll have this talk 100 times during the class. Some people will excel at certain parts and will really struggle at other parts, and that's okay. So as the class goes, you will generally see people doing this, and it will ebb and flow, and it will work itself out for the class. There will also be folks that just seem to learn slower and seem to learn faster. And that doesn't mean anything is right or wrong with them. That's just how they learn or how it's picked up. I mention that because we can't stretch the length of a class, and there isn't a bunch of time in between classes like there is in a university program. Say you're in a normal 3-credit class. I go Monday and Wednesday and Friday for an hour. I have from Monday at 2 p.m. when class gets out, at 1:50 or whatever, all the way until Monday or Wednesday at 1 o'clock to figure out what I didn't understand in class that day, right? That's not the case in an accelerated program like this. You'll be here all day, and then the next day we start new stuff, and you continue to race through it every single day, okay? So it should be exciting. Hopefully it's not too scary. But the reason I say that is because what has to flex is the additional time you put in. Because we have shrunk it down as much as we possibly can to fit everything possible into 12 weeks. And a constant conversation internally is, can we squeeze an extra day in? Like, do we really have to take that holiday? Can we have that workshop on Saturday? Maybe we should stretch it another week. We're always having these conversations to make sure that we're optimizing every minute in class. So if something is not making sense for you, that's fine. We have instructors that are here all evening. We have an entire Slack channel full of alumni and all of your other students, whether in your cohort or the other cohort going on at the same time, where you can go and work on answering questions together. You can talk to your Adobe mentor. There are all kinds of resources that are available for you. So if, I'm jumping ahead here, but if you're in the class and you ever find yourself struggling with something, we will know right away because we're tracking you and following you and helping you all the time. And you'll obviously be telling us and saying, hey, I'm struggling, oh my gosh, help. But that will mean that there's more time in the evenings or on the weekends before class that we're going to be here helping you learn. On the flip side, if you get something and you're acing it, and you're flying through a certain section and you're done with your project, and this happens all the time where we have a project that's assigned, it's due the next day, we've learned about it in the morning, around lunch we've gone and practiced it in kind of a sandbox, like a sandbox environment. And then you have all afternoon to go and build it on your own in the real world where things actually break all the time. And then it gets really hard and scary and you get frustrated. That's fine. We have people that will finish it at 3 in the afternoon and be like, cool, peace out, I think I should go. We always have to remind them, no. This isn't a program where you sit through sufficient hours and then you get a checkbox and then you get to go get a job. Right? This is an avalanche of resources to help you learn, and it's your responsibility to take those and internalize them and gain that skill and master that skill. Okay? So if you finish something early, that doesn't mean you're done. It's not like I finished my homework, cool, I'm gonna go hang out. It means, oh, I get to break it and do it again, or I get to add an extra feature, or I wonder how this works without all the helps that my instructors gave me, or I wonder if I could do this without looking back at the reference documents, or how can I help my peers in class to solve their problems, and by teaching it to them, helping them understand it, I'm going to learn it that much better. Okay? So I'll throw that out at the beginning because we'll have that conversation a million times. So just please be aware of that. Don't plan on doing taking a week off. Don't plan on going out on a big family vacation during this time. It's a time to learn and to focus and to get everything you possibly can out of it, and we'll give you everything. So, hey, hope that was helpful. Like I said, I'll go on for hours if you like. So let's open up for question and answer. Any questions for me, for Adobe, for everyone's staff?
You kind of gave a little description, like we'll learn about something in the morning and then practice at lunch and do the project in the afternoon. Can you give me an idea of like what time we would start and like the typical structure of the learning portion? Is it lecture or is it what is it like? Yeah,
actually, Bob, do you want to talk? You want to touch on this? Yeah, come on up there. You can see anything.
Yeah.
I think we're done with slides, so maybe let's hit lights back on.
We have people online, so like I'll ask some questions as well.
Beautiful.
Cool.
You're gonna make me nervous. So the question was like kind of the day-to-day sort of stuff.
Yeah, what does it look like? What time do we start? What time do we end? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so class, I mean, officially classes from 9 to 6. Unofficially classes, like the doors are open as long as you want to be here. So some people will come in on the weekends, some people will stay late, come early, kind of depending on your life and your schedule. But officially class 9 to 6, break from 12:30 to 1:30 for lunch, and then we run them like 5 to 15-minute breaks throughout the day.
And the other part of the question was how does instruction work? Is it a lecture or is it a?
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer that people can't retain information from long lectures. So we try to keep lectures short and sweet, and then practice it like immediately afterwards, doing the thing that we just learned, and then learn something new and practice both of those things. Learn something new and practice all 3 of those things. And the repetition of spaced learning is actually scientifically proven to be a good way to learn. So.
Cool. Thanks.
Any other questions about the curriculum? That's kind of my expertise.
Do you have an example of your Cinnabon or other programming languages?
Yeah, well, so we do exclusively focus on JavaScript in terms of languages. And we learn like HTML and CSS and different frameworks and stuff like that. But JavaScript, as far as the language goes, is what we focus on. And then, boy, I could, the syllabus, yeah, I mean, we could, you know, we start HTML, CSS, different strategies in both of those, HTML5, JavaScript, like plain JavaScript in ES5, ES6, which is kind of a more updated version of JavaScript, and then we go into paradigms of JavaScript and functional programming, higher order methods, like, I could go on for Node.js, yeah, so on a higher level view, we teach the MERN stack, which is Mongo, Express, React, and Node. So React for the front-end framework, very popular, very in demand right now. And then MongoDB is a NoSQL database, and then Express and Node.js for server-side coding.
D3?
We don't go into D3, but we have had students use D3 in their projects. Yeah. That's kind of a constant battle. The way, like Zara said, we are always like, can we just like have one more week? Like, we just want to stuff some extra curriculum in here. But we get to a point where it's like, this is an awesome library. You're really smart now. Like, go read the documentation and learn how to use it. And our students have done that. I mean, students have made mobile apps in the class using JavaScript frameworks that let you write mobile apps. So,
and a big part of it, as a program progresses, the beginning of it is a little more rote, where there are obvious fundamentals that you have to learn. Right? You must know these things, and everything else builds on top of that. As the class progresses, the projects get longer, so you're not going. At the beginning, it's like, okay, we're going to practice this for an hour, and then touch base, and then review your projects. Obviously, later in the class, we're going to go for several days, or even the final project spans several weeks, so you're able to build something much more robust. As the projects expand and get more detailed, there are also more opportunities for you to explore, add in things like D3, other frameworks you're curious about, or add a little more flair. The ones in the beginning are kind of a standard set of projects that we know will introduce you to certain skills and experiences that you're going to need. And then you can add more and more and more as your skills develop.
So a question from one of our online watchers. It's in the world that's being rapidly accelerated by AI, how are the skills that we learn here place us for future jobs? And are these skills transferable or help us compete in the long term?
So, if I may, our technology is specifically web related. So everything that we do is geared specifically towards like creating web applications. That being said, a good portion of our curriculum is focused on the fundamentals. So, you know, basic programming principles that will transfer across languages and across different like realms of programming, such as, you know, AI, or even if you got into like VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, or you wanted to do like embedded systems or anything like that. I mean, obviously you'd have to do more study because we focus on web-related stuff, but the foundation that we help you lay really is going to definitely allow you to branch out and do whatever you want to do.
One other thing I would add there is, so internally you're actually being great on a number of things. Great isn't the right word, but we build our curriculum around a skills tree, we call it a super transcript, where it measures certain coding skills and essentially language agnostic is the purpose. So whether we were teaching JavaScript or Python or Swift, these skills would be important. Right? Things like problem solving or interacting with the database or HTTPS or security layers. Those are things that will transfer across. And so creative problem solving or critical thinking are things that we are specifically teaching in the class because they're important in programming of any kind. So whether you're going to learn artificial intelligence or some machine learning stuff or anything else, kind of to Bob's point earlier, you'll learn the foundation here and the fundamentals, and then you can go and layer on whatever it is that interests you.
Any more questions from the audience? If not, I'm going to ask another one. Okay, so another question, Liz, is for you.
Yeah.
What methods or plans or processes does Adobe have in place to ensure that we remain relevant in the field and industry and in a mode of continuous learning and change?
I think there are a number of things in place, but also remembering that if you were to continue with Adobe, then you would be growing with Adobe as a company. So everything that Adobe would continually iterate on in order to stay competitive as a company is what you as an individual would be working on in your team. But Adobe has a number of support mechanisms in place for an individual's career growth. So there's something called check-ins, which happen quarterly with your manager, and you set a certain number of goals and you check if you're tracking towards them. And if you're not, then developing a plan to make you continue to reach those goals. And then there are a number of education programs connected to Adobe. So there's an education reimbursement, so you can continue your learning outside of Adobe. And I think that's something that we think a lot about in terms of the Digital Academy specifically, is if you do come in with these fundamentals from the boot camp, how do you continue to learn as the team's needs might shift in terms of what you're contributing? So it's something that we're always looking at and continually iterating on in terms of either providing some sort of additional structured training later on in your career or continuing to support you if you want to do additional education outside of work. Thank you. Anything else? Me?
Do you have other online questions to have?
Those were the 2 questions, yeah.
Very
I'm
cool.
asking, I'm double checking.
Okay.
Some of the coolest projects, maybe, Bob, that students have built that just out of 12 weeks, what can you make?
Yeah,
What can you do?
so the boy, there's a bunch. So there's one from, I guess, the January cohort. They made a so they used the technology that lets you take web development and put it on a phone. We were teaching Angular at the time, so it's called Ionic. It's a framework that helps you basically write Angular web code and put it on the phone. They made a conversation app where you could like if you're at a business meeting or something, you want to share your contact information, but you don't want to share everything. You can like go on your phone, check like I want them to be able to see my first name and my phone number, and that's it. And then it generates a QR code, and you just put that, and the other person scans it, and they get just that information on their app. Or you could, if it's like someone you're trying to date or something, you like check everything. So yeah, that was a really cool one. There's been some. The funny thing about, and actually a lot of our students recognize this. The funny thing about web development is you'll do something like pretty hard and it looks really dumb and it looks so easy. And so like you'll show your husband or wife and they'll be like, hey, I don't understand. I spent like 30 hours writing. So like a chat application using Socket.io and like having messages pushed to a database and have the database push stuff forward, like that's a lot harder than it seems. Ben, what can you think of?
AJ made a really awesome app using Google Maps. He's a really big outdoor fan, so what he did is he made an app where you could pinpoint like a hike that you like. That like he built it for like photographers. So like he built it so like you could pin drop places where you like to like hike to and like take pictures of. And so you could put a pin drop on the map, and then so anyone that used it could sign into their account and like put pin drops of like their favorite places to do locations, and then just share it with other people. And then you could if you clicked on like a pin that already existed, you could like see more information about it, like how to get there, like best times of the season to visit. It was awesome. It was really cool. 12 weeks. He'd never done it before. It was really awesome.
So you probably remember more details added. One that I thought was cool was Peter that did that huge like multiplayer game database for like tracking all the wormholes. So it was done in Pro Office.
I was with
Okay. So he I can't remember what it was called, Eve or something like that. It was some massive online game he played all the time. He, like, loved it. So he came and was always telling everyone in class about it and trying to get everyone to play with him. So for his final project, it was some game where there's like no end. It's just like you infinitely build stuff and there's alliances and groups. And some cool game, but anyway, he loved it. But it was such a big game, like there's no limits to it, there's no bounds. And so you could just build whatever you wanted and go on in any direction into infinity, essentially. So he built an application that helped track all the locations of key points in the game. Without going into too much detail why that was a cool thing. It was too much information for someone to just manage on their own. But because he was able to track all of these coordinates, he was able to map this super universe in a way that gave him a big advantage. He was trying to control everybody and beat everyone in the game. So maybe not like super valuable as far as like business utility, but it was awesome for his purposes, and he got to brag about it, and he really cared about that. And so could talk very intelligently and at great length about that.
That made me think of another one. One of our earlier cohorts, like early cohorts, built a game. So we found someone who needed a piece of what do you call Dungeons and Dragons? Like A role-playing game, yeah, it's like a role-playing game, and he wanted to make it so that there was an electronic component, so everybody could have their computers around, or laptops, or like tablets or phones or something, and it would show your characters on the screen, and then show all the enemies, and then you could like tell my character to attack there, and it would do you would do the dice roll in person, and it would pop up a calculator, and you would like put in the calculator. It would like make a sound on everybody's machine and like do the damage. It was just really obnoxious for them because they would, they'd have their list of enemies with their hit points. We'd roll the dice and then they'd like erase and then like write down the new one and then do the math and like all the stuff. And so we helped them build an online component that had like all the enemies generated, all the good guys generated, all the, and then you would still like have a physical part of the game, but then you'd enter like the dice rolls and we'd do all the math. Stuff for your salespeople.
The answer to this question will not be a deal breaker for me. I'm just really curious if you've ever had anybody take a project and then turn it into their career. Like if they built a project and then end up making it a business or something.
Yeah, definitely. So probably a bigger percentage of students at B school than other boot camps go on do this, get a job. We have kind of an entrepreneurial bent as far as that goes. So like do things, that's awesome. Like start a company, build your own agency. I know how to do that, I can help you. So it's about 15 to 18% of our students will go on and start a business of some kind. A few have raised money. None have like gone to become Facebook yet. But yeah, that's definitely something that probably more students that on average do here.
Should we talk about Danny and
so
Sarah?
Two of our students from our May cohort that just graduated, two women, Sarah and Casey just started a dev shop together. And they have 3 clients, small businesses, salons, whatnot. But they built a dev shop together, found their co-founder, and they've been producing, and they come in every once in a while to ask questions or to help others. She's here today solving problems. She's like, Ben, I can't figure this out. Yeah, help with the shopping cart. So people have found co-founders, people have found best friends, people have found help, so mentors. People
have gotten jobs within the Impact Hub. So one of our latest students just got a job with Atlas, which is really cool. They're working with a lot of blockchain technology. He literally works like down the hall, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, so like if you're at Adobe, like you never want to leave that campus if you've been there. Like, I mean, you can eat and drink and do it's all there. Similarly, like we're trying to create a hub where you can constantly come back. So alumni are constantly hanging out with us. Our space is your space forever. So career counseling forever, co-working forever. Access to events, to networking events, and that type of thing. It's kind of like, if you went to a really, really great school, a university, where you come back for the basketball games, maybe it has, maybe you go to church on Easter, at the school or something. I don't know. Like, I feel like some of these Ivy League schools do it really, really well. The St. Mary's of the world, and like, they're not Ivy League, but I think about the Bay Area. Stanford is amazing, right? Like, some of these schools are this place where you constantly come back for learning and for networking and for just to make friendships, and that is B school. It's nothing that we set out to really do, other than we just create a space, and our students really become that community, and it kind of grows within. So it's pretty awesome. I think Adobe's a similar. I've never wanted to leave. It's just one of those places that it just feels good, and I think B school is also one of those spaces. Impact Hub is certainly one of those spaces. Once you're a part of this crew, you always have a technical crew that has your back.
You'll see that. I mean, we opened with the lifestyle video, right? Like, it didn't have as much tech as you'll obviously experience for
It's pretty true.
But those actually are students, and those are things they were doing. We're just like, hey, we're going to video you doing this, so just like make sure you're smiling extra, and we might reshoot different parts of it to make sure it looks good. But those are for students, right? That's a big part of it. One of the most magical things for us is to see alumni interacting with each other. So one of the coolest things, last year we started doing 2 classes overlapping. So we have a class that meets up here, and we have another one up on the 4th floor. It's awesome because they'll come down and all co-work here. They all come to events. So they're all coming to campus together. So they see each other in the hub. They're interacting on Slack. We'll have instructors switching back and forth, and so they get to know each other. And then as a cohort graduates, you kind of move up, and you're like, oh, it's up the classroom now, right? So then all the newbies come in like, oh man, I remember when I didn't know how to do that too. Like, you'll
1
figure
month
that out.
ago.
Back in the day. So, and then you become the mentor, right? You go and you help them. And it creates this really cool camaraderie, and it kind of links these cohorts together because they overlap. So when you're the young one and the upperclassmen are teaching you, then you get to grow up and teach them a month later. And then when you leave and you're off in your careers, you're able to come back on campus and you're helping and you're trying to hire for your company or for the company you work at. Like, oh, no, who's the next like hot shot of this class? Like, I want to bring someone over to my company now, right? It creates a really cool chain, a really cool community.
So you have a few questions here. Anyone have a question for us? You're here in person, so you get a little bit of priority.
Yeah.
Nothing? Okay. So for Liz, for you, this is from Daryl Parker. If hired by Adobe upon completion, does the company take a certain percentage of my first year's salary? Also, does Adobe ever work remotely?
So to the answer to the first question, no. This, as I mentioned, this really is from the social impact perspective. When we first launched this program, it primarily was a scholarship program. So you can get familiar on our website with the other social impact programs that we have, but it really is Adobe as a community Adobe as a company wanting to connect with the community. And I think more and more we want our office and our employees to reflect the community where they're based. And that's something that's really important to us. So you just become a regular employee, and it's the benefits that an employee gets. Obviously, I think we try to continue to have the cohort of support from the Digital Academy. So I meet with the full-timers usually at least 2 times a month, depending on their work schedule. They come or don't come, but we have speakers come in, and we just continue to have that space to support each other. Because like I said, you continue to have the challenges of going from a really intense education environment to being next to someone that might have 10 years of experience and might have gone to a 4-year college or have a master's or PhD in something that you're just not going to be at the place where they are. And so sometimes having other people who are in your similar situation can be really beneficial to talk to. And then the second question about working remotely, it all really depends on the team that you're placed with. I'm not necessarily the best person to answer that question because it's so dependent on where you'd end up working, what your priorities would be, what you would talk about with your manager. I would say Adobe really strives to be a supportive work culture. And again, you can get sort of the more formal overview of that on our webpage. But really, I think knowing that Adobe wants every individual to still be able to have their outside of work life, and that's important to Adobe as a company, I think there's usually supportive solutions that an individual comes to with their manager.
Bob, I have a question for you. Are projects geared to a broad range of demographics as end users? Which I think means, can you pick your project?
If that's what that means, then
Is that what it means? Did anybody translate that differently? You want to say it again? Say it again. Are projects geared to a broad range of demographics as end users?
So,
like can they be used by anybody in the world, sort of thing? Like when
I think so. Yeah. Like make it public.
Yeah. Well, so like Zara said in the beginning, we kind of force you to do projects a very certain way. Like we say, you're going to build a to-do app that does this, just for practice reasons. But then when we get into your personal projects, it's whatever you can imagine that is within the scope of like a week or a week and a half that you can build it. So we kind of help you say like that's too ambitious or that's not ambitious enough. But yeah, you can build your app to be something that the whole world might want to use, like the next social media, or it could be something super specific like Michael who built an app for like locating the nearest swing set near you. Like, yeah, it could be either something geared towards a huge range of people, or like Jordan's Burning Man, you know,
that was actually really dope.
So, yeah.
I think something that we think about, what we briefly talked about even before this information session started, was each of you will bring your own experiences to vSchool and then to Adobe. So obviously you're going to gear your project based on what's your community, what's your network, and we really want to continue to challenge ourselves to say, how do we make this inclusive? So I think sometimes some of the examples that we hear might have been based on an individual's own interests or experience. So you hear things that maybe they're really outdoorsy, but you say that that's not actually something that I'm interested in, so your project would go that direction. But we always think you bring your own background in with you, and we're supportive of that.
Absolutely.
Bob, you answered the question appropriately.
Okay.
You got it. He said it was great.
Have you ever had anybody put out like a joint for purposes of remote sensing using a Raspberry Pi microprocessor?
I can't think of anybody who's used like an Arduino or Raspberry Pi in the class. We have, I think, we have a part-time instructor who comes in every now and then who is really interested in like Internet of Things sort of stuff. And so he actually tried to get a Kickstarter going that was like for teaching people how to use Raspberry Pi, like making a little squirt gun.
Would that be considered like a sophisticated programming language?
Well, with Raspberry Pi, you can use Python, which is a very, very easy language to learn. Like once you learn JavaScript, Python feels like golden. I love JavaScript, but I really love Python. So yeah, Python is really popular for programming in Raspberry Pi, and it's not a huge leap from JavaScript to Python.
The biggest reason we haven't used it in class is because Bob mentioned it's very focused on web development for the purpose of career, get a job in this. So that ends up being a really awesome tangent, but that would go down to like a subset of who might hire you. Awesome stuff, impressive, and there are tons of companies that would love that skill. If that's something that's interesting to you, then yeah, like we definitely support you in learning that and helping you achieve that next step. Exciting
news. We're going to be having a Raspberry Pi event mid-November. So just keep an eye out on our Facebook page and whatnot, like what we're doing. That's one of the events that we just decided to host. Because we're like, what are people into? And people said Raspberry Pi. So like, okay, we're eating pie the week before Thanksgiving and building pie things. There might be a competition to eat the pie. We'll see. But so keep an eye for that.
Pie day.
It's Pie day. It's Pie day.
It's like the best play on words ever. You get to eat
Okay. Another question. We probably have 2 more questions maybe, and then we can wrap up any cookies, and then you guys can ask individually if you're
we'll be around.
a little bit too shy to ask in person. How often do we change the curriculum?
Every day. It's the main, the overview of everything is structured in a certain way that we know will give you the outcomes that we need you to have. But every day we're like, we should like tweak it this way, and like let's move that thing before this other thing, and it's a continually upgrading. Well, I hope it's upgrading as we change it. It's getting better and better every single day, and all the instructors are every day on our system where we write a curriculum, improving past things and creating new things.
So maybe talk for a second, if you would, just about the switch from Angular to React. We talked about that and watched it for like a year before we made it.
Yeah, so we actually used to teach Python way back in the day, and we switched from Python to JavaScript because it was more hireable. And Angular 1 was very popular. It really pioneered the way that web is approached these days. And we stuck to Angular 1 for a very long time, just until like 4 months ago, I think, when we finally switched over to React. The reason not being because we didn't see React becoming a big framework, but because there were still more jobs in Angular. So whereas like there are lots of cool new technologies, like if any of you are into the web, there's a big one called Vue.js, which is gaining popularity. there just aren't nearly as many jobs in Vue.js. I personally, like, having looked into it, it seems really cool. But there are more jobs in React, and that really dictates how we do major transitions in the curriculum. Are there more jobs in this than what we were teaching? And finally, as of 4 months ago, there were more jobs showing up for React than Angular. So we switched.
You'll see that throughout the curriculum, things that we focus on or things we highlight versus spend less time on. That's always changing because it's a balance we're playing, right? Our goal is not to have the newest, shiniest, most experimental framework to teach you, because that wouldn't necessarily serve you as well in your career, right? We want to be able to say, okay, this has reached a certain stability, employers are now adopting it, it's now it's now more beneficial to you to learn this language versus that, because it will give you a better opportunity in the job market. So we're always watching those things, and whether it's a curriculum change or whether it's how often or how many tech interviews we do or how we introduce you or connect you with employers, all those things are constantly being tweaked and changed to make sure that we're doing it as efficient a job as possible. Like when we talk about extending the class a week or shrinking it, we could extend it, and we could find a good reason to teach you something awesome to turn into a 4-year degree, right? There's a reason they teach it in 4 years. It takes longer. But if you're going to sit around and be unemployed for that long, that's not as awesome for you. So how do we cram as much as possible into a long enough period of time that you can be really, really productive and then go and springboard your career? Any other online ones?
No.
Okay. So I want a cookie.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. Guys, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. We're going to close it up. More cookies, more drinks. I know I've said this like 7 times, but I'm really encouraging you to sugar up and hydrate. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Y'all do wonderful. Thanks.
You are just the next step. So what's your right now? Yes. It's my last name is Cordova, C-O-R-D-O-V-A, C-O-R-O-R-D-O-V-A, and then the number 8, and then my first name is Brandy, B-R-A-N-D-I. Brandy and it's at gmail.com. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna put Adobe, And then here is the website. Thank you. You're welcome. Absolutely. And then reach out to us with any questions you think of. I know, like you get a lot of information, and then like there's really one time over your car. You're like, I appreciate that. My mind is kind of still running. So currently, I work for Charlotte County. Expanding very cool. Very cool. That's what I think. Like I love working in the county. There's kind of the opposite. Beyond that, sure. Especially not Brandy, yeah, what's your name? Shelby, nice to meet you. Or you can pop by. I'm sure they'll love it. Yeah, I will do that. Thank you. And then make sure you find I'll probably do it tonight or tomorrow. Yeah. I like the energy of it. Feels good. Yeah. Good. Thank you. I appreciate I mean, worst case scenario,
So I would agree. Every process.
And again, that's information you sign off on before they I would say, like,
So I will apply for this. Thank you so much.
So they'll pay for full tuition for as well as
Workshops once a month, and projects, things like that.
Okay, I feel like running through. And so I just kind of rising like college, sorry, high school. Yeah, no, I know it's not. It's more like something to be thinking about.
This is all right.
I want to say most, but
Okay, so you're discussing I was like, well, we deal breaker if they don't have the smartphone. And he was like, yeah, and if they don't come here, we show up in like 2 drinks like that. So thank you for providing. Perfect. Sounds like a wide range of things. So, is there a baseball campus out there? Like a studio. That's awesome. You understand the drive to fight for those things, and how old they are, those things. It's exciting.
Yeah. So it's full time or I started
All that over her head for the rest of your life. Oh, so you have a lot of experience in admissions and this kind of thing. Oh, that's great. So are you in the area to stay here? Yeah. Well, this was great. I'm so glad we talked today. I had no idea there was a session tonight, and I was thrilled. It was. It really was. So I told them this about finished coding.
Yes.
I feel like I know right, which I knew from the get-go, but I didn't understand how important it would be. And now I'm like, I went to a STEM career fair, really had great training, a lot of good contacts, felt really scared after talking to them. I haven't started I need somebody to come up to me. Yeah.